welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to review this book here called How to Be Autistic by Amelia Poe. I read this book, I got this book very recently, and I thought it was a really good book. I would actually give it 10 out of 10. It's one of the best books on autism that I've actually ever read. It's an autobiography written by Amelia Poe, a young autistic woman. She's actually about my age. Interestingly enough, she was actually diagnosed autistic. I was diagnosed at the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, and I think Charlotte was diagnosed about sort of 2009, 2010. So a sort of similar we weren't diagnosed that far apart from each other. I'm not entirely sure how old she is. She must be. Yeah, my guess is she's in her early 30s. Yeah, she's around my sort of age. She might be a year or two younger than me. I'm 32. It's possible she's around 30 or 31. I'm not entirely sure, but she grew up in the 90s like I did. Now, what I really liked about this book and about reading about Charlotte's experience is that she's just an ordinary autistic. She's not like. She's disabled by her autism. She's not like, say, someone like, I don't know, Chris Packham or some of these kind of high-flying celebrities or any of these like really successful autistics you read about, because I've read about other autistics. For example, I think it was Laura James, and I read her autobiography a couple of years ago, and Laura James is this autistic woman who's she's a good writer as well, and I enjoyed reading her book, but I couldn't really, and obviously I related to some of her experience. But because like Laura James is like, she's like married with kids and and has kind of made her own way in life, and I don't think has ever been on benefits. I could be wrong, but she came, and has like quite a very successful career as a journalist. I couldn't really relate to it. Whereas Charlotte seems to have her experiences are closer to my own. Obviously different. We're not the same, but I could relate to them. She's relatable. She's on benefits. She's got mental health problems, different mental problems to me. But at the same time, similar, and I can relate to it. But at the same time, she's come through some very negative experiences. But she has made a success for herself, but in a sort of very modest way that seems something that we could all potentially achieve, if not the same that she's achieved. At least we could kind of if the gap between her experiences and my experiences, it isn't so big. I don't feel alienated by it. I thought, this is inspiring, this is motivating. This I could achieve. I could attain maybe little successes like this. Now in Charlotte's case, her little success actually came about quite out of the blue. She won a Spectrum Art competition. I never actually heard of the Spectrum Art prize until I came across Charlotte. And it's basically an art competition that any autistics can enter, and they accept any form of art. It doesn't have to be painting and what is conventionally considered to be art. It could be like, say, you could write something. It could be a poem. It could be a story. It could be anything. And in Charlotte's case, it was a written word piece that is actually up on YouTube called How to Be Autistic. I really recommend you go check it out. I'll put the link in the comments box below. I've seen it. It's a really good. She's obviously got great talent for words. Charlotte has. She's I guess like me, her strengths are in the sort of verbal area. And she, at the beginning of How to Be Autistic, which is her book that she wrote after she won the Spectrum Art Prize, and then she was sort of mentored to write this book. She'd always wanted to write a book. She'd always wanted to be a writer. And actually, when I was reading this book, I was like, wow, it's kind of motivating me, because I quite like to write a book, but I haven't got down to it yet. But, it was quite motivating reading this and make me think, I should maybe write about my own experiences at some point. But yeah, at the beginning of the book, you have got her written word piece, How to Be Autistic, at the beginning. And it's a really, really good, she starts off by saying, you will be told you are a troublemaker, that the thing you can't put into words, yet that divorces you from everyone else, is responsible for the way the other kids pick on you. And you really must try harder to fit in. You will realise quickly that you cannot trust anybody, not really, because they will ask you to do things that break you, that will haunt you for years. You will meet people who you will revisit in nightmares, and go to places that will hide behind your closed eyelids as you toss and turn at night. You will learn to be afraid. You will learn how to be afraid and still breathe. You will learn fear as survival. And that's just the first bit, but it goes on. I love the bit at the end where she says, Carl Sagan once said that we are all made of star stuff, that when the universe first exploded out on itself, it created the atoms that eventually became us. So when your breathing hitches, remember that you're swallowing ancient planets, that every single second since the birth of our reality has been leading up to this moment, so you're allowed to be afraid. There's no bravery without fear, no courage without that awful lump at the back of your throat and the turning of your stomach. You will survive. Because it's been 13.772 billion years since you were created, and you are fucking cosmic. You have shone in night skies before day and night existed. You are a fluke, a chance, something so utterly unlikely that the odds are incalculable, and yet there you stand, a miracle. They'll never understand the ordinary folk because they take what they see for granted, and it's not their fault, it's just all they've ever known. You've had to fight for your existence every step of the way, so you know the cost of survival. And so it goes on, and it finishes off with "You will survive." And I just think it's such an empowering, inspirational piece. So do go and check it out. Check it out on YouTube because it's just so good. And yeah, I guess her story, like I say, some parts I can relate to, other parts are a bit different. She went through school with very, very severe anxiety, something obviously I can relate to. I've experienced a lot of anxiety, but in her case, it took a very sort of physical kind of manifestations. She often was sick at school and she wanted to be sent home, but she couldn't be sent. The teachers didn't allow her to be sent home, which was deeply traumatising. Left her with kind of post-traumatic stress, and she describes school as almost like a kind of a sort of prison, sort of straitjacket. Unlike me, there were differences. Like unlike me, she excelled academically at school and was in the top sets, whereas in my case, I didn't excel academically. I really struggled academically. I blossomed later on. Obviously, I went to university, as talked about in my other videos, and now I can say I am pretty academic, but I still don't feel academic actually, but the legacy of feeling stupid all those years. But I did have more significant in the way of sort of learning difficulties, which obviously is different to her experience, so that was a bit different. But there were many parallels, your sense of extreme anxiety, and also what's quite interesting, she says that because she couldn't concentrate in class because of the anxiety, and I can relate to that. I think, that obviously added to the problems at school, like, not being able to understand what was being, the instructions coming your way, feeling out of depth. Also, some of that was obviously the autism and not understanding things, but also, of course, being anxious 24/7 means that you're going to be finding it really hard to concentrate in class. And Charlotte says that actually when she got home for study leave, she found that she could actually do a lot better because she was no longer in fear. She could concentrate on her work a lot better, and I can relate to that because when I did my study leave, that's when I found, actually I do understand this stuff, because you can do it at your own pace, not in that stressful school environment. And although, unlike me, Charlotte never did go to university, and she sort of, because her mental health got so severe at one point, she completely dropped out and didn't even go out and leave the house for I think she said over 2 years. She says she calls them the lost years, late teens into her 20s, and I could relate to that as well, because I have a sense of the lost years, where your anxiety is just taken over your life. I mean, thankfully for me, I wasn't completely housebound. I did get close to that. At one point, I hardly left the house at all, but I did still at least manage to go out. I managed to go to university, my local university, but at one point, I think Charlotte was literally housebound. She didn't even go out, I think she only went out about once a month, because in her case, she had very severe agoraphobia. In my case, it was more a combination of OCD and autism, but Charlotte was taken over by this extreme agoraphobia. And so she never went to university, so that was a bit different to me. But she's still at home, she's on benefits and I'm on benefits. The other thing I can relate to is that she's also bisexual. Now, actually, this is the first time I talk about it on here, but I'm going to be quite open about it. I am asexual, and Charlotte's asexual as well. And I also happen to be, I'm gay, basically. Okay, I'll just get it out there. I am gay. So I can relate to this. Charlotte was talking, in Charlotte's case, she's a bisexual. I'm not bisexual, I'm gay. But, it's on the same kind of LGBT thing, isn't it? But yeah, it was interesting to read about that as well, because you wouldn't know from her persona that she is gay, and she was saying how, she's in this sort of privileged position, and she feels she needs to talk about it because, obviously gay people often there's a lot of homophobia and stuff, but if you don't look gay, you can kind of pass, as it were. So in a way, if you don't look gay, you're sort of in a quite privileged position. And she said, she really feels like she needs to talk about it to tell people, she doesn't want to keep this hidden. She wants to talk about it, it's not a secret. She wants to get the word out there. And I thought that was really quite inspiring as well. And I could relate to that. Obviously, again, there are some differences. Her special interest happened to be body modification, tattoos and piercings. That's not my interest at all, so that's completely different to my own experience. I wouldn't go near a tattoo parlour, not because, but mainly because I'm just I don't like pain. That's the main reason. I don't like pain, and I haven't got any piercings. I'm squeamish, I don't like pain. That's the main reason why I wouldn't do that. But yeah, she's like really obsessed with that sort of thing, so a bit different to me. But like I say, obviously there's lots that's different because we're different people. But I just found it very, very relatable. Experiences with anxiety and and I just love the fact that she's quite humble and ordinary, and yet she still attains the success with the Spectrum Art Prize, and felt very inspiring. I mean, I'm not thinking, I'm about to win a prize or anything, but it was just pure luck in her case. Obviously, she's got talent; she's a great writer, but it was just pure luck that she happened to send in that submission and happened to win the prize. But it's a modest success. It's not like an extreme. It's something as I feel like it's a relatable success. It's not an alienating success. She's a relatable. It's a relatable. I can feel like she's a role model. She's inspiring, but in a kind of humble way that I can relate to. She also talks about autism awareness and how we need to move beyond autism awareness, because most people are aware of autism, thanks to all that crap about the MMR vaccine causing autism, which is a load of crap. But most people are aware of autism. But the thing now is that we need to build the acceptance. We need to really educate people about what autism is and how it affects everyone in such different ways, because it's got deeper understanding about what autism is that still hasn't got out there. And she said we need a lot more awareness, we need a lot more training. In her case, she wasn't diagnosed, I think pretty much the same age as me, and I think she was about 21, about the same age actually as me when she got diagnosed. And she says, she saw many psychiatrists growing up when she was at school, and they all missed it. And she says it's negligence. She calls it negligence. She says she can never forgive them. And she was literally bullied by teachers and things like that when she was at school. She was bullied a lot when she was at school. Thankfully, I avoided the sort of physical bullying that she received, but I was excluded. And I think all autistics experience some low level, even low level exclusion and ostracism by your peers can still be deeply damaging to your self-esteem. Sometimes even more damaging in a weird way, because it's kind of less tangible than, say, something more like physical bullying. But yeah, she was bullied, and she was bullied by teachers. She was bullied by her peers, and that's left a deep psychological mark on her. And she says, she describes it as negligence and she can't forgive them. And currently, I think she said, she does receive some social care support, but very minimal social care support, because once she's been diagnosed, they're just like, we don't want to know anymore. There's just not enough training out there, which is really, really bad. She also said, like, one of her, she did say she did have a good social worker, but that social worker left because the job became too stressful. And I could relate to that. I did once have a really good social worker, but she left. And then she was describing how her current key worker is just so impossible to get hold of, and I've had similar experiences of that. You just can't get hold of them when you need them, and that's something. And there's just not enough training, there's not enough money, there's not enough resources out there. Interestingly, her interest seemed to be in the sort of creative areas. She studied, I think, sociology and philosophy when she was at college. I think she dropped sociology. She also did psychology, philosophy and sociology, I think, when she was at college. But that's interesting as well, because that's not stereotypically what people consider to be autistic interest, but I can relate to that because obviously I'm really, really interested in philosophy. So similar interests there. Yeah, and obviously the fact she loves writing, she's very verbal, verbal is her strength. I can relate to all of that. As I say, just a really interesting read. It's a memoir. Her story is about survival, fear, and finding hope. There'll be parts that make you want to cover your eyes, but I beg you to read on, because if we can change just one person's perceptions, if we can help one person with autism feel like they're less alone, then this will all be worth it. It says, as we follow her journey through school and college, we become as awestruck by extraordinary passion for life as by the enormous privations that she must undergo to live it. From food and fandom to body modification and comic convention, Charlotte experiences through the torments of school days, young adulthood leave us with a variety of conflicting emotions: horror, empathy, despair, laugh out loud amusement, and most of all, respect. As I say again, some of her experiences, like she was a really, really fussy eater, struggled with the textures of food and stuff. Obviously, I can't relate to that because obviously for me it's the opposite. I absolutely love food, so that was something in there that was a bit different. I think the main things I could relate to, all in all, were just the extreme anxiety and sense of not fitting in, and the legacy that school has left. I mean, thankfully in my case it's not quite as extreme. I haven't had quite as extreme trauma as what she's had. I think some of her experience is absolutely awful. I mean, I often think my experiences are pretty bad, but when you read something like this, you think, whoa, some people's experiences are just even worse. It's just really bad what she went through, like at school. I mean, thankfully I never actually experienced overt bullying by teachers, but in her case, her form tutor was really, really horrible. Some of the things she did are just absolutely shocking. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to finish this review now. All I can say is, really, really good book. She's a really good writer. Do go and check it out. I highly recommend this book. So thank you for watching.